Okay, it's the morning of day 4, Romford Film Festival. I'm absolutely delighted and honoured to be joined by some very special guests all the way from Canada to talk about Ray of Hope, a fantastic documentary that we've just seen. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves, please, and the kind of the role that you played in each film, just going to go down the line. Start with yourself, Rathika.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Rathika Sitsabaiesan. I'm the principal subject in the film Ray of Hope and one of the executive producers.
Hi, I'm Nikita. I am one of the directors, along with Ryan Singh, of the documentary you've just seen. I was involved in the writing and the producing, and I'm a bit emotional. I'm always emotional when I watch this film, no matter how many times. I'm just a bit of a mess, so apologies if I'm a bit of a puddle right now, but that's who I am.
Right, absolutely.
Who are you?
Introduce yourself.
This is Maya.
She's Maya. She doesn't like hearing the echo when she speaks in a microphone.
Okay.
So that's Maya, my daughter, and she was the opening scene of the movie, and
the closing scene.
and the closing of the film. That's Maya.
Hello.
She's now 7. She was 5 when we were filming.
And my name is Ryan Singh, one of 2 directors of the film, producer. Any of the away shots, I was also the cinematographer for those. I traveled with Rathika, and she couldn't get rid of me for some reason. 11 years.
Oh. So first question to you, Ryan and Nikki. What was it about this subject? Well, first of all, how did the kind of topic become the film for you in the first place? What was the inspiration? When did you first, not hear about it, but when did you first decide this is what the film you wanted to make?
Well, I grew up on the west coast of Canada, and as a small child, I was hearing things in the headlines about Sri Lanka and the Tamil Tigers and some kind of war and some kind of, it was newsworthy a little bit. My parents were very politically aware, so we always had the news on. And then it just kind of disappeared. I didn't really know about anything. So in the middle of the pandemic, I remember I was in quarantine in Toronto, and Ryan called me up, and he said that he had this woman, this friend, Rathika, who has an amazing story to tell, and he had been back to Sri Lanka with her and had a pretty harrowing experience. And he started to tell me the story, and I said, I didn't know anything about this story, and I grew up quite knowledgeable about what was going on in the world, and this is a story that needs to be told. Yeah. And so I said, if there's any way I can help, count me in. And then I met Rathika, I think also on the phone. We all met on the phone first. I don't think there was even Zoom yet. There was just the phone and in a basement in quarantine. Okay. And so we met first on the phone, then on Zoom after that. And they decided that they would like me to be on board, and here I am all this time later, 4 years later, I think.
December 16th, 15-month-old twins, and Rathika and I had a conversation. December 26th, I'm on a plane headed to Sri Lanka.
2013.
2013.
Wow, okay.
December 31st, we're going in hiding because we've been under siege. 9 years, January 4th, we run away from Sri Lanka.
Right.
9 years later, I'm still trying to pitch this story to broadcasters and even people within the Tamil community who would come on board and say, I can't do this. I'm still afraid for my family.
Right.
And so in January of 2022, I decided I was going to bite the bullet and just make this film. So we went into production 2 years ago.
Okay.
And it became a different story because what happened in 2013 wasn't relevant anymore.
Okay.
I realized that even my relationship with Rathika, she avoided having conversations about the topic, about the story.
Right.
And I saw that that same theme was happening where people don't want to talk about what happened.
Sure.
And so this is what happened when I started to get them to open up. Those that were brave enough to open up.
Yeah, was there still a lot of people that you couldn't persuade to talk? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and some people, as Collins mentioned, wasn't even sure he was going to speak until the morning we were filming.
Okay.
And two of the participants still have their faces blacked out because it's still dangerous for them.
Sure.
So and Collins' family, his sisters and his mother, were only there to watch. They weren't even going to participate. But while we were filming, it became evident that they wanted to speak, and so they felt it's really amazing because they trusted us enough just by watching what we were doing and how we were doing it, and so they came on board. So it's always been a gradual. It's building trust, as it always is in documentary filmmaking. And we're just so honored to have been able to receive the stories and to be able to present it to all of you today. It took a long time to get here, but well, seeing it on the screen here, thank you so much. The screen is lovely and the sound is lovely. We have a really amazing composer who...
yeah, the score is incredible, yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I did today because I heard it properly for the first time. It's really just been released, and so there's been some struggles with technical, there always is, but yeah, today we got it fully, and I don't know how you all feel about it, but for me as a filmmaker, the music is such an important way to lift the story and make it presentable and moving and impactful and all of that, so yes, thank you very much for that. That's a real wonderful experience, thank you.
Question for you, Rathika. So when the guys first approached you to kind of participate and make this film, what was your, were you reluctant at first, or was it something that you were like, no, I need to be on this project?
Well, I'm not sure exactly that's how it went, because as Ryan started to mention this timeline, I had decided that while I was a sitting member of Parliament, it was the safest time for me to maybe travel to Sri Lanka for the first time since leaving as a child. And I was very advanced in my social media usage back then, so I wanted to capture some of my footage, some of my experiences while I was there to share with the world through my YouTube channel. And I knew that Ryan was a filmmaker and knew a thing or two about cameras. So I called him up and I asked him, I said, I want a digital camera, a point and shoot camera to take with me. What should I buy? Because I didn't have anything. At that time I was still using film cameras. And he said, well, if you can afford it, you should just take me with you. I already have the fancy sound equipment and cameras, and I can just be another set of hands to help take the pictures for you so that you don't need to. 11 years later, here we are. So the fact that we have all of that footage from 2013 is because I decided to ask him for some help and advice on buying cameras. I think that's the seed that kind of started all of this. So I think I was already part of the project, whether I wanted to or not. And so, and I'm grateful that Ryan was willing to leave his wife and children and come with me on that first trip and share that experience with me. And also the fact that he was there meant that I could go into problem solver mode and not actually allow myself to be a human and be raw during that trip, and I wasn't allowed to be scared overtly because I needed to take care of him and make sure that he got back to his wife and his young twins. So I was in protector mode. I got this, you don't need to be scared. I got this. And grateful that he was there because he allowed me to be in that rather than crumble up into a ball and, puddle of tears somewhere.
He was shooting from hiding underneath the seat. I don't know if you could tell.
When we were in that van, he was literally on the floor of the van shooting up because we had so many intelligence people following us, and if they saw a camera lens, that was grounds for them to stop us and arrest us. And constantly everybody was telling Ryan, please put that away, please put that away, please put that away. And the filmmaker in him refused to,
I can believe that. Yeah.
refused to, then he's like, okay, well, I'm going to be here on the floor of the van and shoot from here. Nobody can see me from there. So
Ignorance is bliss, to tell you the truth. And like most of us in this room today, we don't know or wouldn't have known what really happened in Sri Lanka. There's constantly the quest for evidence, more evidence, show us more evidence. So I was completely ignorant of what was happening in Sri Lanka when I volunteered to go. And I didn't realize that there was a war and the soil was still wet with blood from the lives that was shed. And so I didn't realize the danger that I was in when I decided to go. I kind of work on impulse. And so I wrote all of my passwords and left all of that with my wife, but when it did become real for me was when we had to be in hiding. And we had ex-Tamil tigers that was protecting us, whether driving us around or whether they were in different places, pockets, just making sure that they shoo us over here, shoo us over there. And then as a filmmaker, I'm there capturing this footage and I'm writing the story. And I would say something out to Rathika and she's like, did I tell you that? Please don't say anything because that was my plan and I don't trust people around here. And it turns out that there was real infiltrators that was among us, that were her friends, that she thought were her friends, that were spies.
Well, and that carried on 9 years later. There were still a lot. We worked very closely with the Tamil community in Toronto and beyond for just to be very safe for everybody, and we were constantly learning how dangerous it was for them, and also just being aware of the cultural sensitivities because neither Ryan nor I are Tamil. So we did a lot of listening, and it's still very dangerous. So it's always been fraught with kind of a tension about that.
yeah, to continue what Ryan was saying, I had a volunteer who had come, worked in my office, my office as when I was a member of Parliament, volunteered, relatively new immigrant from Sri Lanka who had worked in broadcasting in Sri Lanka and understood how the media worked, had pretty good grasp of English and Tamil, and also spoke Sinhalese as well, and was a great volunteer. And then all of a sudden, after, I don't know, I want to say a year and a half or something of being with us, disappeared.
Right.
And when we were in Sri Lanka, that's the person Ryan was pointing to. This person is there and constantly trying to find out, oh, I want to meet up with you, where are you at, what's happening?
Right.
And then when we're in hiding, has my Canadian phone number. Because I had a Sri Lankan phone and a Canadian phone. I completely turned off the Sri Lankan phone so they couldn't trace me. And has my Canadian, my BlackBerry that you saw on here, and is trying to text and reach me on that phone saying, where are you, where are you? You know, I want to come help you out and come join you. And not even my family knew where I was.
Right.
There's no way I was going to tell this guy. And then I find out from people who saw videos and pictures of him, oh, that guy, we know him, he works for this Sinhalese politician and whatever.
Right.
So it was clearly somebody aligned with the government who had infiltrated my political office, my office in Canada.
Right.
So the Sri Lankan government's reach is very far and broad.
I was going to ask you about some of the challenges in the filmmaking, but I don't think there's not really anything that's going to be worse than infiltration, is there? Is there any questions from the audience at this point? Ito will find you with just pop your hand up. Okay.
Hello, my name is Robbie Charles, and I just have a question really. I firstly just thank you for the hard work and the good work that you put in to get this law passed. Together with your colleagues in Canada. I'm wondering how you're finding it as far as establishing internationally a sort of remembrance of the genocide, and more importantly, or just as importantly rather, can you elaborate on why it's so complicated? Because it seems as though the facts are clear, but why is it so internationally complicated to get other nations to come on board?
That's a complicated question. There's layers to that, I guess. First and foremost, we don't really have enough evidence that's gathered. Because there's so many, we as people who have fled the genocide, we are the safe living pieces of evidence. Because many of the people were killed on that land. And the people who continue to live there are already every day facing the oppression, facing the realities of living under a genocidal government. So we can't leave it up to them to bear the burden of being the witnesses as well and providing the evidence to the United Nations or the global community. So it's really us. We're scattered all over the world. And as you heard in the movie or from Nikki or from Ryan today, how difficult it is to try and get anybody to speak. And then within the Tamil community, it's hard to be able to trust. Hard to know who is working with whom, where alliances or allegiances may be.
Do you think there's a kind of divide and conquer still going on?
Absolutely, there's still a divide and conquer. We know that there are Tamils globally on the Sri Lankan government's payroll. We don't know whom to turn to, and if there is a clean or clear leadership where we can, as a community who want to see the genocide officially recognized globally, follow. So it's really a whole bunch of us who are global activists and volunteers who have found each other from Canada, US, UK, Germany, Finland, India, and some who are on the ground, boots on the ground in Sri Lanka as well, who have come together and said, all right, well, let's align ourselves and do whatever we can by tapping into the UN mechanism to do this work. When we go to the UN, they're like, okay, well, we need more evidence. We need to provide that evidence. And so that's, again, a question of courage or willingness to live beyond that fear of what might happen to myself as well as my family that continues to live there. The minute Ryan and I left anywhere, those individuals were interrogated. My family, each and every single person, you saw the big family reunion, my mother's side and my father's side, each and every single person, whether it was my little cousin or my big uncle who's now passed away, every single person was individually taken away and interrogated.
She never told me that.
I didn't know that. There's a lot I don't tell them because I don't need them to be completely afraid of being part of this project. And I don't think there's another government which is a member state of the United Nations today that has the gumption or the willingness to stand up for the Tamil people when they're thinking as a legislator as well, right? We need to have sufficient evidence to be able to back up any claims we make. There is evidence, there need to be more of us coming out and speaking. And if there are governments that are willing to, or if there is a government that is willing to, I'm certain that there will be people who will be brave enough to come and support. So it's almost as if we need to put the cart before the horse now, because the horses are just too scared. And if they see that the cart is packed and ready to go, the horses will be able to and ready and willing to come attach themselves and then pull the cart. So this movie, I guess, is a little piece of our contribution to that conversation and our ask to the global community, to legislators around the world, that we need someone, a nation, to be brave enough to be willing to say, we'll take this up, help us. And I'm certain that the global Tamil community will be there to provide the evidence.
In my in my research working with Rathika and the team, what I've noticed in many of the communities is that everyone is talking inside of the community, and they're throwing events and sharing and memorializing what has happened. But when they speak outside of the community, it's just spoken about in a very general way. There isn't a specific ownership. So if allies are looking in, allies don't know who am I fighting for, because it's so general. Nobody is taking ownership, because even with that ownership, I believe that you're exposing yourself, and people can use what you're saying and your own experience and now challenge you or charge you for something that you were. I mean, there were freedom fighters in there,
Sure.
and they had to do what they had to do to stay alive. And we're seeing it play out since October 7th everywhere, and people are culpable on both sides in things, but there's still so much victims everywhere, and the victims are the innocent people.
Always. I want to also just add something that really became part of our story, and even I keep learning about it after we had a launch in Toronto within the Tamil community, and it was about intergenerational trauma, which the film goes into. And I'm the descendant of Holocaust survivors from different countries for a long time, and I didn't realize how important it was for me to understand the effect on the next generation, because I could never find out the stories of my past because nobody wanted to talk, and many of them went to their graves never expressing it. And I really, through the making of this film, got to understand that very process when, after the launch in Toronto at the gala, the young people came up to me, and one of them is one of the young boys in the film, and he said, "Thank you for teaching us our history, because our parents can't or won't talk to us about this." And I think it's not just the fear, it's also re-traumatizing themselves. I think when people have escaped this kind of trauma, they want to put it behind them. They don't want to keep going through it again. And so the importance of bringing that story to the next generation, which may also help move everything forward and outwards when the younger generation can take it on and can at first start by understanding what happened.
Yeah.
So I feel really good to have been a part of that. And also it was really helpful for me personally just to begin to understand my own history and other people's histories around the world right now that you brought up.
I mean, the Armenian genocide, it took them 105 years to have the Armenian genocide recognized.
Exactly.
We're more than halfway there, you know. We're on our way.
Well, the government of Ontario was the first sort of official government to declare genocide awareness.
Tamil Genocide Education Week is what we have in Ontario. So the 7 days prior to May 18 every year in the province of Ontario is now commemorated and recognized as Tamil Genocide Education Week. So this gives space for educators in our K-12 system, or what do you call it here? I guess elementary and secondary school, as well as in higher education institutions where they can focus on ensuring that Tamil Genocide education has some space created in the curriculum for our children in our schools now. It's just started. And there are some educators who are brave and willing to, and there's some who have said, how do I get this movie in my school? And then there are also teachers, Tamil teachers, as well as Sinhalese teachers who are of Tamil descent or Sinhala descent, who are saboteurs or standing in the way and blocking and making sure that we don't have these types of conversations. The teachers who are Tamils, it's been because of fear. Oh, but what are they going to say? What's in the film? Is it going to make, if I sign off and if I co-sign on this film to be shown in the school, then what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family? Because they will know that I co-signed on it. Who is they? The Sri Lankan government. And then there's Sinhala teachers also who are trying to create hurdles or stops or blocks for this film to be shared in schools. Might be because they assume, I don't know if they've actually come and watched the film, they assume that it'll make their people and lineage look like the bad guys, the oppressor. I mean, I have nothing against the Sinhalese people. I have everything against the Sinhalese government or the Sri Lankan government, which is the problem, which has been the problem since the improper decolonization of that island.
Yeah. We're going to have to wrap there, but I did want to ask you what your, hopes for your daughter's future was, and you mentioned that, you're going to get the film out there and look to the future, and hopefully, some of these things are going to be recognised and things are going to change. And yeah, we really wish you all the best with that and with the film going forwards. And yeah, just lastly to say thank you so much for all coming all this way and spending time with us and for submitting your film. And yeah, can we just have a round of applause, please?
We have one other question. Do we have time to take it?
If the answer's quick, yes. Sorry.
The answers can always be quick.
Sorry.
Yes or no, we can say.
Okay, so first of all, I wanted to say how beautiful it was and how much, thank you, how beautiful the film is and how much I appreciate the way that you've melded the beauty of humanity with the beauty of nature, which makes it bearable. But I also wanted to ask about the creative dance between you as two directors. How did you do that?
They want a quick answer.
You can hold that. You take it away, Nikki.
Yeah, it's a good question. How do I say this quickly? A lot of we both have very strong approaches. Nifra, you know me as a choreographer, and I have a strong approach. It's really the melding of keeping the story and having a shared vision for the story, and melding our two different ways of working. They're very different. Our two different approaches and our strengths and skills. We brought and continue to bring different strengths and skills to the process. So a lot, like any relationship, it's a lot of give and take. It's a lot of listening. It's a lot of talking, communicating. Very, very important, and always keeping the film first and foremost. What's important is the film, not whether I win the argument or he wins the argument. It's what's the film and what's in the best interest of the story, and bringing this in the best possible way to people who will come, who will see it, who will hopefully tell their friends about it, so that we can continue to get the word out, because the film is what's important. So I don't know if that was quick, but that's...
Can I just ask, what can we do? I've sat and watched it, and like you feel sort of speechless.
What do you want to answer?
That's Rathika's answer.
Okay, Rathika, what can they do?
Contact first of all, thank you. Right? Thank you for being here, watching it, and then being moved and hearing that call to action. The call to action is get engaged, get yourself more informed, contact your member of parliament. If you're here locally, as in the UK, contact wait for the election now.
No, but
It's a good time because they're going to be candidates who really want to hear what's important for you. Have conversations with them and say, this is an important topic for us. If and when you form government again, are you willing to take this up as a cause, as something that needs to have recognition at the United Nations, at the International Criminal Court, like wherever, all of these are actual different avenues that we as global Tamil activists who are volunteers are working on pursuing. And if we can have a member state of the United Nations come on board, then that is our best way to actually move it forward. Like what we saw South Africa do with Palestine, right? If UK could do that, if England, Great Britain, I don't know what the right term is. UK is fine, great. If UK can do that, then that will be great. And if UK or US comes on board, I'm sure there'll be other nations that'll be willing to come on board.
And tell them about the film, because the film can be a voice.
The film can help fill in a lot of gaps and
It's on the website. And
help
they can-
amplify any questions that maybe clarify some of the questions that people might have, but also help in telling the stories of our lived experiences from the voices of Tamils. Do you want to say it yourself, or do you want me to say it for you? Okay. So Maya wanted to share, and hopefully I get it correctly, that when we finished making the film, she wanted to share it with her school. And had spoken with her teachers and wanted to show it at the school. But because it's not yet in French, Maya goes to a Francophone school, so it's not yet dubbed in French, so we weren't able to show it this year. But soon we will get it dubbed in French as well, so that it's available to much more of the world, more accessible by being in both English and in French, so that we can share it with the rest of the world. And to answer a little bit of your quick question about my hope for her, it started off as something that was going to be to share with the world, and it ended up being my love letter to Maya. Because I've been an activist since I was a child. I started working on making changes for the Tamil community as a 7-year-old. Tamil was introduced as a language as part of the International Language Program at the Dufferin Peel School Board because a 7-year-old wanted to make that change happen. And so anything is possible, any change is possible when you're this old, as long as you believe in yourself. And so my letter to her is that, and to all young people, is that as long as you believe that some change needs to happen and you're willing to speak out and not let your voice be silenced, anything is possible. You just say it out loud. You just stand up, and when a door closes, you find a window that you can jump out of. Right? There's always change is possible.
No jumping out of windows.
When a door closes, you can open a window
Okay.
and speak through that window. Like, there's always possibilities, and it doesn't have to be only those members of parliament who can speak for us. It's each and every single one of us as average citizens, as average global citizens. We can make these changes happen, and that's what we are doing.
Thank you very much. Very powerful. And the film, the upload. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.